JJ and Sal are back, and fellas, the manager and the GM were really just the warm-up act, as Steve Cohen will step up to the mic before Wednesday night's game. So, Sal, what do you want to hear the Mets owner say?
Maybe something similar to what Buck said. We all look. I don't need to hear Steve Cohen say it. Honestly, we all know what we're watching. We all know how he feels. He's frustrated. He's angry. He's basically said as much. But just admit, and he doesn't have to admit it. Just acknowledge that it's been a down year. Maybe he's surprised that this has gone this way. Sure, but the reality is right now the team stinks and they need to play better. So however he's going to get that message across, JJ, we all know the reality. As long as he speaks the truth, I'm okay with it.
It's not going to change anything, but I think when Met fans are watching a product that is not up to their standard, when they're spending a gazillion dollars in the offseason and they know that the owner has the resources, they want to hear from the owner, hey, this is unacceptable. This is not what I paid for. This is not what I expect to see. And I know it's not necessarily going to change anything, but it's the sort of thing that Met fans are going to hear and they say, he's one of us. He gets it. He understands the pain and the anguish that we're going through watching this team on a day in and day out basis. And that's kind of what Steve Cohen brings to the Mets, right? Like that sort of sense that he's
know
like
that, right?
No, but like hearing it though, Sal, don't you hear it and you say, hey, he's one of us. He gets it.
I guess. I mean, just the fact that the guy spends the most money in the world, on his team, that to me is enough. So it's different than years past. You're right. Seeing it, I guess, helps alleviate some of those frustrations that you have. But ultimately, we all know Steve Cohen wants to win just as much as anybody.
Yeah, I think it almost has to be what Brian Cashman did last year when he said, look, it's not on Aaron Boone and it's not on us. It's on the players. Almost put it on the players' mantle right now to own this team. So, JJ, if you're handed the microphone in the Mets media room on Wednesday, what would you ask Steve Cohen?
Here's my question. We heard from Billy Epler. We heard from Buck Showalter. There are a lot of Met fans who are down on both the GM and the manager for whatever the reason, whether it's fair or unfair. So I'd ask Steve Cohen point blank, are these two guys coaching and working for their jobs? Do the Mets have to be a playoff team, or are we looking at wholesale changes in the offseason? Now, is Steve going to answer that question? Not necessarily, but it's a question I have. If the Mets tank and they win 75 games this year, am I looking at a new GM? Am I looking at a new manager? What is at stake for the second half of this year?
Yeah, the one question I would ask, because Steve Cohen has always operated as all-in. He said as much, even recently as maybe a couple of months ago. Is there any circumstance that his team would be sellers at the trade deadline? I mean, it's going to be a fair question, and we on the outside say, well, yeah, if you're 20 games back, you should sell. I'm not so sure that he's going to forego this season where he's all in and not take a run, however the odds may be stacked against him, and try to make one of those wild card spots. So I'd be curious to see if there's any scenario where the Mets would be sellers.
Here's a question for the Mets owner. What took you so long? Why are we having this talk now? We should have had it a week ago. We should have had it on Monday after the Sunday loss.